She stood right in the center of the road, clutching her phone, and shouting into it like she was reporting a national emergency. All this chaos, because I'd parked my own truck in my own driveway. I wiped the engine grease from my fingers as I stepped out, still feeling proud of the old Chevy I'd just brought back to life after weeks of tinkering. Across the curb, Martha, the self-declared ruler of our neighborhood association, glared at me with that same cocktail of disdain and self-importance she always wore. "You can't block the community easement," she barked, even though my truck wasn't anywhere near the street. "I've already called the police. You're not allowed to park here." I let out a short, tired laugh. "Martha, this is my driveway. My property. You don't get to make the rules here." Her eyes narrowed, her voice trembling with that brand of false confidence that always cracked under pressure. "We'll just see what the officers have to say about that." Within moments, 2 squad cars rolled up, red and blue lights splashing across the houses. I stayed right where I was while Martha rushed toward them like she'd just saved the neighborhood from an invading army. "There he is," she announced dramatically, pointing straight at me. "He's breaking HOA regulations and refuses to move his vehicle." One of the officers glanced at her, brows furrowed. "Ma'am, this appears to be his property." Martha huffed, arms crossed. No, you don't understand. This entire street is under HOA control. He doesn't even have the right to live here." My jaw clenched, but I kept my composure. Slowly, I reached into my jacket and pulled out my weathered leather wallet. Inside, my veteran ID glinted in the pulsing light. "Officer," I said quietly, handing it over, "before we go any further, you might want to take a look at this." The officer's face shifted instantly. "You served?" he asked. "Yes, sir," I replied. "Bought this place when I came back. It's mine, fair and square." Martha froze mid-breath. The color drained from her face, her lips parting but no sound coming out. For once, she didn't have a single word to say. The officer turned to her. "Ma'am," the officer said firmly, "this gentleman has every legal right to be on this property. I suggest you step aside." Martha stumbled over her words. But he's blocking his own driveway." "That's not a crime," the officer replied, cutting her off. When the patrol cars pulled away, the street fell quiet. Martha just stood there, her phone still clutched in her hand, breathing hard. I glanced at her once, calm and steady. "You picked the wrong driveway today," I said, before turning back toward my house. The breeze carried her silence behind me. Still, something in my gut told me this wasn't finished. The next morning proved me right. A bright yellow sheet was taped to my front door. Notice of violation. Unauthorized parking. Non-compliance with community standards. I exhaled sharply and crumpled the paper in my fist. Across the street, there she was, standing in her garden. Watering plants that didn't need it, eyes fixed on me like a predator watching prey. The moment our gazes met, she gave that smug, sugary smile that said without words, "This isn't over." I walked across the street, keeping my voice even. "Martha, you do know there hasn't been an HOA on this block for years, right?" She tilted her head, lips curling. "Oh, we're bringing it back," she said sweetly. "And I've been chosen as acting president. Expect your fines in the mail." I laughed, shaking my head. "You can't just invent a homeowners association." She took a step closer, voice dropping low. "Watch me." That evening, I opened my mailbox to find 5 letters inside, each stamped with her phony HOA seal, each signed by her hand. One even claimed my house was subject to seizure for rule violations. That's when I understood this wasn't about neighborhood rules anymore. It was personal. The next morning, it escalated again. I stepped outside to see my truck chained to the curb, a heavy metal boot clamped around the tire. Martha stood across the road, arms crossed, recording everything on her phone. "Should have followed the rules," she yelled. "The enforcement team's on the way to tow it." I crouched down to inspect the boot. The paint was chipped, the lock rusted, no city markings, clearly fake. "Martha," I called out, standing to face her. "You sure you want to go down this road?" She smirked. "Too late to act brave now, soldier boy." That word hit harder than she knew. I took a slow breath, holding my temper in check. "All right," I said quietly. "Then I'll make a call of my own." I went back inside and made one call. Just one, to a friend who still wore the badge and owed me a favor. 10 minutes later, a black SUV eased up the street. No flashing lights, no siren, just quiet authority. Martha's expression faltered when two men stepped out. Real law enforcement this time. One of them glanced my way and gave a curt nod. "We got your message," he said. "You mentioned someone posing as HOA enforcement?" I pointed straight at her. "Yeah, her and whoever she's roped into this." Martha's confident mask cracked as the taller officer approached. "Ma'am," he said evenly, "mind showing us your authorization papers?" For the first time, arrogance drained from her eyes and fear took its place. I'm just trying to keep the neighborhood orderly," she stammered. "He's violating community standards." The officer arched an eyebrow. "Ma'am, we just checked. There's no active HOA registered for this street. And this wheel boot?" He tapped it with the toe of his boot. It clanked hollow against the metal. "Looks homemade. Where'd you get it?" Martha froze. Her lips twitched, words failing her. It's from the HOA office." "Which office would that be?" he pressed. The silence stretched too long. That was all they needed. The officer turned to his partner. "We'll be filing a report for property tampering and possible impersonation." Martha's phone slipped from her fingers and hit the pavement. Wait! You can't arrest me for protecting the neighborhood!" I stepped forward, voice calm but cutting. "You don't protect a community by breaking the law, Martha. You protect it by respecting the people who live here." Her eyes darted from me to the officers, panic replacing defiance. "He's lying!" she shouted suddenly. "He threatened me. He's ex-military. He could be armed." One officer sighed, turning toward me. "Sir, do you have any weapons on the premises?" I shook my head and handed over a small leather folder. Inside were my property deed, my veteran ID, and a city letter confirming there was no HOA jurisdiction on our street. He skimmed through each page, then looked back at her. "Everything checks out. He owns this property, and you have no authority here." Martha's shoulders sagged. "You don't get it," she muttered weakly. "He acts like he's better than everyone else." I cut in quietly, steady as stone. "Martha, I've only ever wanted peace. You've been on my back since the day I moved here. But I'm finished playing your games." The officer's tone hardened. "Ma'am, remove the boot and stay off his property." "That's not a request. If we get another call about you, it won't just be a warning," the officer said flatly, handing her a written citation. Martha looked like she might break down, but her pride kept her spine straight. When the officers finally drove off, I knelt beside my truck and started unfastening the fake clamp. Across the street, she stood on her porch, trembling, fury flashing behind her eyes. "You think you've won?" she muttered under her breath. I glanced up at her and replied softly, "No, I just stopped losing." She spun around and slammed her door so hard it rattled the frame. That night I sat reviewing the footage from my security cameras and froze. A figure moved through the dark near my truck. Someone crouched, cutting the wires beneath it. The shape, the posture, it was unmistakable. Martha. By morning, my truck wouldn't start. I lifted the hood and stared at the cleanly severed cables. I didn't need to guess who was behind it. I sent the footage straight to the same officers from the day before. Within an hour, that same black SUV pulled up again, this time with a warrant in hand. Martha stood outside trying to keep her composure, but when they showed her the video, all the color drained from her face. "That's not me!" she shouted, but the evidence was undeniable, clear as daylight. The officer stepped forward, cuffs ready. "Ma'am, you're under arrest for vandalism and harassment." They clasped her wrists and walked her down the path she loved to call hers. As she passed me, she turned her head, eyes burning. "You'll regret this," she hissed. I met her gaze and answered calmly, "No, Martha. I already regretted keeping quiet." Weeks later, the silence felt different, peaceful. My truck ran perfectly again. The street was calm, and no forged notices ever appeared on my door. Standing by the gate one morning, I looked up at the flag on my porch as it rippled in the wind. "I fought for freedom once, halfway across the world," I murmured. "And I fought for it again, right here at home." The end.